joining today. My name is Stephanie Langston, and I teach Spanish at the Newton campus and online. So I'm going to present some ideas today that you can utilize both in a face-to-face classroom and in an online classroom. So feel free to text chat any questions that you have as we go along. But our topic is gauging student comprehension, and I have found that as the years pass, fewer students seem to be ready to share when and if they have problems understanding the material. Fewer students visit me in my office. Fewer students come to my virtual online office hours. And so I wanted to find some creative ways to gauge their comprehension in such a way that they really didn't have a choice in the matter, so that they would share what they knew, but also so that it's a nice, fun, engaging learning activity at the same time that keeps everyone engaged. So the first tip I will share with you, and the reason I have don't raise your hand is not because I don't ever want them to raise their hands if they don't have questions, but just because I want to think outside the box and give some alternatives to the standard any questions, or in my case, hay preguntas, problemas, and give some alternatives to that. So this first option is what I call low techie, and it's great for the face-to-face classroom, and it's just an individual whiteboard. As you can see, my own children love these. In fact, my son, Emery, almost expresses his emotional side and his empathy to me in this form alone. I mean, he's very nonverbal in his expression of affection, so I love the fact that he writes little sweet notes to me on these at home. But with my little kids, I use them for spelling word practice, sight word practice, for Emery, more complicated math problems. It's a very green way to have students practice. Now, when I first started doing this, I did not know that they had these little handy dandy packs available on Amazon. I just recently discovered that and love it. A little option that I used, and a cheaper option, was to go to Home Depot or Lowe's, of course, your preference, and to have them cut down a large whiteboard into 1 foot by 1 foot squares. And then you pay about $1 a square, and you still have to provide markers and erasers, or if you're less eco-friendly, paper towels or napkins. But if you purchase these packs on Amazon, even though it's a little more expensive, they do come with little markers, which of course run out eventually, but also these adorable, tiny little dry erase board erasers. So this is a very cool way to check for comprehension in your classes, and they can be used in a lot of different ways. Ooh, we just got a note from Pamela about getting a grant for this. Fantastic, thank you. I've also talked to some other foreign language instructors at other colleges who simply purchase one kit, like a classroom kit for the department, and then sort of do it on a checkout basis. You might not need these every single day in class, so it might not be something you would spend money on personally for your own classroom. But this works in a number of ways. Obviously, for a math class, you can see the application where they would work out the math problems. For history, you could use it to quiz them on dates of important events. You could use it to quiz them on important people throughout history, giving a description. In languages, for example, in foreign languages, I use it for verb conjugations a lot. I use it for putting together sentences in the correct order. And Tracy, you could see the ESL application, as I'm sure, where each student has a word, and then you say the word out, the sentence out in one language, and then they have to come up and put this together in the correct order in the target language. So that would be a way that you could use it as a group instead of just for individual knowledge checks. You could use this in lit classes to gauge their comprehension of a passage. For example, you can even make it as simple as using little emoticons. How does the narrator feel? Or how does this speaker react to the situation? Even to see if they've read something the evening before. How did John feel when Martha did this? So you can use it to gauge emotion, and you can also use these to simply have them put something like "I don't understand" in a way that simply there you go, I'll show you that one, that it's simply not so in your face. Maybe you have some shy students who are afraid to ask questions. So by a student holding that up as a little indicator, then you could actually go back and review the previous thing that you had just discussed. You could do like a little check mark system. Okay, who has a problem with what we just reviewed? And then, you know, they could do an X if they don't understand, thumbs up, thumbs down, any number of ways you could utilize this system here. And you could even use it to put together creative stories. So if you wanted to share maybe a film or to share something that they're reading and say, okay, we're going to stop right here. And now I want for us to create the ending or discuss what would happen next, and then they could each put together a small piece of the rest of the story. And of course, it could be imagined, it could be based on what they read the previous evening, what they watched online, but they could use this to piece together parts of the story to continue and use it in a more creative way. Obviously, with math, they could do bars and graphs and charts and all sorts of things. So this is one idea, and I think there are a lot of applications in all disciplines for this. Plus, it does make it more fun for them, and it keeps everyone active as opposed to just a handful. Some other low techie ideas are, number one, to allow students to create a quiz. This engages them in some critical thinking, and it shows you whether they understood the concepts to begin with. Obviously, you wouldn't want this to count for 30% of their grade, but it could certainly count for a very low percentage, and then you could review the quizzes they created, and then if you approve of them, then you could swap them up, and each person takes a different person's quiz for that particular assignment. You could use color cards, where you have red, yellow, and green laminated paper, and after you have taught a concept, they hold up a color card based on their level of comprehension. That's a really fast and easy one. The 3-2-1, this idea came from the link that's on the screen, the Edutopia, but 3-2-1 is based on periodic checks that are a little more in-depth. So they would name, for example, 3 things that they already knew prior to class time, 2 things that they know well enough to teach to others, for example, and maybe 1 thing that is completely unclear to them still. And so that would be a quick way. Maybe you could have them do that at the beginning of the lesson, even write it on the board. Then as you're engaged in collaborative work, you could come around, take a peek, and you could see which is the most pressing need, which thing they have, the majority of the students anyway, have an issue with as far as comprehension. So those are some other low-tech ideas. Now for webinars, and I'm loving the new WebEx, I use Blackboard a lot. What I do to keep them engaged in review sessions and oral discussions is to call them totally at random. So I don't even have them raise hands, unless of course they have questions. But I'm quizzing them by calling out their names and having them be ready and on their toes to respond. Also, I'll have them use emoticons, and I'm not as familiar with WebEx if that's even an option, but like the thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, frowny face, just it represents a concept briefly, and then I have them do emoticons, and then that gives me an idea of what I need to review more. And then also, you can ask questions and have them type their answers all at the same time, like 3, 2, 1, go, or 3, 2, 1, and then they type in what they think the answer is in the chat area, but I do a little countdown for it because I don't want one person to wait until the end, until he's seen all the other responses and then just copy the same thing. So I make it very, very fast as far as them typing it in, and that gives me a quick little glance of how many have the idea and how many need review. And using polling questions, of course, is also a great way to keep them engaged. You could even have them respond and get participation points by responding to your questions. All right, yes, so under edit, fantastic. So edit and WebEx allows us to see emoticons. I love it. Fantastic, thank you. I'm learning too. This is a great little tip that a colleague of mine, Andrea DiBernardo, who also teaches STEM, gave me for online classes. If you're grading their work You can leave little nuggets in the feedback, because we notice that sometimes for online, they're less likely to review their instructor feedback than for face-to-face. So she offers a little nugget that might be a tip for the next assignment or assessment. It may be even a golden nugget, an extra credit point for doing something, a key word that they use in their next assignment, and maybe you don't even release the grade for the next assignment until they enter that keyword to show they've reviewed the previous one. Because how often do we find ourselves giving the same student the same feedback when they don't pay attention to the feedback that we have for them? So I thought that was a fantastic one. I stole it from her, and I am giving her credit for that. And then just a last little slide here to share some links with you to wrap up some high techy options. Many of us have used clickers in the past. There are a number of devices or a number of apps you can use for devices. For iPads, this first link offers free iPad apps that are really nice. Some of them are designed for K through 12 that are totally customizable, and you can make up your own questions. The clickers, I've found that the Reef at the very bottom has an Android and an iOS download. So if you have students with a multiple variety of devices, they may not all bring iPads to class, but we guarantee that at least 90% of them have a cell phone that operates on iOS or Android. So if you wanted to try something a little more high-tech in class, that would be a nice one to try at the very bottom, that link there. And I think I've actually gone over, Tracy. Sorry about that, but I guess I'll open it up for questions.
No worries. This is great. Any questions? Okay.
Great, good. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, that was my favorite one too. I like that, especially for language classes. I could see how that, I mean, really any class, but specifically for the language classes, I could see how that would be a really, really great tool. Yeah. Awesome.
I love when I bring in the big giant box of the whiteboard.
They know what's going on, right? Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We will have this recording up on YouTube soon, and if anyone has any questions, they can send them to us, or they can send them to directly to Stephanie.
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and thank you to our presenter.
My pleasure, and thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kathy, for joining.
All right. Bye.